the smell of the antiseptic in the room, the doctors orchestrating the nurses to hand her the various tools and devices in preparation for the delivery of my daughter, the moaning and screaming getting stronger and stronger as the epidural injection started fading away. All this and much more took me to a state of mind that I have never, ever experienced before. Staying emotionally balanced during the delivery of my daughter's birth as a first-time father was a roller coaster of emotions and obscurity that many men do not talk about. Still, I will share with you my experience and how my emotions, values, and faith stayed in a state of peace. Before the birth of my child, I created an ethos to be in a state of peace within myself, which is what I call my inverted triangle of peace, or my Nabla. The triangle is balanced on one of the tips, with each side representing 3 equal elements: emotions, values, and faith. When balanced, the triangle gives me tranquility and peace. However, once circumstances come into my life that start derailing my triangle, it's time for action and to get it back balanced. When my wife said to me I was going to be a dad, I felt I was ready and in control. But boy, was I wrong. As most first-time fathers will experience, experiencing the birth of a child is something that you try to prepare for or think you're ready, but you really can't, because there's so much unpredictability that naturally your emotions find themselves in the eye of a hurricane. For example, a moment that will forever be engraved in my mind is when my wife gave the final delivery of my child. The nurse quickly handed me a set of scissors in order to cut the umbilical cord. I nervously grabbed the scissors, I took a deep breath, and then all of a sudden, and to this day, I still feel the sensation of the scissors cutting through the umbilical cord, and of course, experiencing a tailspin of emotions of my daughter's voice resonating across the room. It was a very, very powerful moment for me. As the nurse took my daughter, holding her on one hand and using the nasals to remove all the fluids from the ears and the nose, and literally giving her a bath on the palm of her hand, I asked if I can help in any way or matter. She graciously said, "No, don't worry, Dad, I got this." Everything seemed surreal to me. But then the nurse finished pampering her, and then all of a sudden started walking towards me. As she did that, I thought she was going to give me my daughter to hold, but she quickly said, "Excuse me, Dad, we need to lay your daughter on your wife." And I was like, okay, great. Going through this experience from the start of entering the delivery room was an eye-opener for me, because I had no sense of control or felt that I had any participation in the delivery of my daughter. At least that's what I felt, and so I thought. But a few moments later, the light bulb turned on. On the storm I was experiencing, or the storm that I was experiencing, had a very beautiful silver lining, that it wasn't about me, it was about my daughter. I needed to change this, so I worked on my emotions to stay calm, because at times I give myself a lot of credit, because during the delivery area, I felt like a piñata that was just being pounded on, and I got everything thrown at me. To time my triangle, on the emotional side, I kept things at bay, but just simply taking gulps of fresh air. On the value side, I had to be dependable and reliable. On the faith side, I knew the professional staff was experienced. Therefore, this gave me a sense of control and, of course, to let nature take its course. After a few hours passed and we finally signed all the paperwork, and finally my triangle was balanced, we started packing our clothes, and we were ready to leave the hospital when all of a sudden the doctor walks in and said to us that the baby needed to stay because it had jaundice and it required phototherapy to add more vitamin D. Otherwise, the baby could die. I was crushed. I was no longer in the storm I was experiencing earlier. I was in a universal vortex of confusion and helplessness because first I didn't know what jaundice was, and all I heard from the doctor was the word die. As I turned to my wife and saw her holding my daughter with a firm grip that nobody's going to take her, I had to dig even deeper, knowing that we may not take my daughter home that evening. Back to my triangle. On the emotional side, I composed myself into a state of calmness and requested for more information from other doctors. On the value side, I applied an open-mindedness approach to help me look at all the available options. On the faith side, I had to trust the doctors and look out for the betterment of my daughter based on what they recommended. After a few hours of consulting with several doctors, they finally let us take our daughter home and gave us some phototherapy devices to help our daughter get through this ordeal. It was a breath of fresh air and relief. What I learned from this was that even though I was not experiencing the physical labor pains or had control of the chaos around me, I had to be the rock of tranquility and accept the outcome of the birth. But most of all, to stay in control of my triangle. We will not always have control of things in life, but what we do have control of is our triangle and how we choose to apply life's lessons, especially during the eye of the hurricane in the delivery room.